I'd like to welcome now Lucy Melcher, who's the Director of Advocacy and Government Relations for our national sponsoring partner, Share Our Strength. Lucy will be providing introductions for the speakers during our next session of government leaders. Please welcome Lucy.
Good morning, everyone. It's so great to be here. Thank you, Luann. So I'm really excited about our next session today, talking about the role of government in feeding kids. For my role working in our national office on government relations and policy in DC, I can really speak to the importance of having government champions who are willing to stand up for kids and for the nutrition programs that support their health, their development, and their academic success. Today, we're joined by representatives of government at the federal, state, and local level who can really give us a better picture of the work that's being done at each of those levels to serve children. And North Carolina is so lucky to have so many leaders from your governor and your first lady, who I know we're really excited to hear from in just a little while today, to mayors, county commissioners, city council members, and so many others who really understand the connection between healthy kids, well-nourished kids, and a healthy state and healthy North Carolina. So I'm really excited to have that conversation today. Our first speaker today is Dr. Lilly Bouie, Special Nutrition Programs Director for the Southeast Regional Office of the USDA Food and Nutrition Service. When Lilly began at FNS, she came with more than 29 years of experience in the administration of child feeding programs, including 12 years as Child Nutrition Director for the Little Rock School District. And during her tenure in Little Rock, Dr. Bouie worked with the Arkansas No Kid Hungry campaign, another partner of ours. And her school district was so excited to host actor Jeff Bridges, who's a great champion for No Kid Hungry, and many other champions to showcase their great work on school breakfast. She serves on the board of the School Nutrition Association and most recently served as its at-large director. We're so grateful to have her with us today to give an overview of the goals and priorities of the new USDA administration. Please welcome Dr. Bouie.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Where's that Dr. Taylor and Dr. Ray? I was having a flashback as I sat and I listened to them address breakfast in the classroom, which is very significant to my heart. So break time is extremely essential as it gave me an opportunity to put on the correct hat. And for those of you all who know me within the child nutrition profession, I recently resigned from the board for the School Nutrition Association, but my sole role this morning is to address you from a USDA perspective. Good morning, and it is truly a great day here to be in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I thank Ms. Lucy for that introduction. I bring you greetings this morning from our Secretary of Agriculture, Mr. Sonny Perdue, Brandon Lips, our Food and Nutrition Services Administrator in Washington, D.C. And regional greetings I bring to all of you this morning from Robin Bailey, the Regional Administrator based out of Atlanta. On behalf of the USDA's Food and Nutrition Services Regional Administrator, Robin Bailey, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to attend this 7th annual North Carolina Child Hunger Leaders Conference. I am honored to serve as your new Regional Special Nutrition Programs Director. Food and Nutrition Services, Special Nutrition Division, operating out of Atlanta, provides administrative oversight to state agencies as they direct oversight of the National School Lunch and Breakfast Programs, food distribution, summer food service programs, at-risk after school, child and adult care food programs, women, infant, and children, which is now known as WIC, and the Senior Farmers Market Program, just to name a few of the oversights. We stand prepared to assist with programs in any ways possible. Further today, I'm even more honored to be among one of the most diverse group of hunger leaders in North Carolina. I would like to acknowledge the Governor and First Lady of this fine state for their ongoing support, Attorney General Steen, mayors and commissioners, State Director Dr. Lynn Harvey, and State Director Mary Burkhart. I'd also like to acknowledge Principal Jason Griffin as the recipient of the 2017 Principal of the Year. What a true honor for Mr. Griffin. and to the rest of the many leaders present in the room today, I say to you, thank you, thank you, and thank you. We could not do much without you. Food and Nutrition Services shares your passion to end hunger in America. And so again, I'm excited to be here, not only to share resources, but to continue the important work to address current challenges and to discuss more innovative ways that we might be able to move forward together. North Carolina state agencies administering food and nutrition service programs continue to benefit from partnerships such as the one that we have with No Kid Hungry, North Carolina, an initiative of Share Our Strength. As a result of these partnerships, many children were recipients of summer meals and at-risk after-school meals, just to name a few of the targeted areas. Please make note, we have more work to do. Increases in participation are needed in those areas. However, there's yet much that North Carolina has to be proud about with the initiatives set forth in the past couple of years. We continue to be grateful for our partnerships with our advocates like you. We encourage you to raise the bar, help us to collect data, provide marketing materials, develop training tools, as well as be cheerleaders as we act as boots on the ground for you. Doing so has allowed state agencies to use its limited resources to improve efficiency, oversight, and outreach. We could not accomplish this much without the support of our community partners. Food for the Summer Meals programs were prepared at McDoodle Middle School from June the 13th to August the 12th, and they handed out meals to volunteers who delivered those to 20 Chapel Hill and Cabral locations. Some locations served neighborhoods, while others were reserved for children attending specific programs, including the YMCA and other centers here in Chapel Hill. Prior to today, and since I've been with USDA's Food and Nutrition Services, I have firsthand knowledge as to why collaboration is so vital to our collective work in providing Americans with access to nutritious foods. All of our 15 nutrition assistance programs rely on collaboration and strong partnership. This concept of collaboration is at the heart of who we are. The Food and Nutrition Services is just a part of one big team. Secretary Perdue has charged USDA with becoming the most efficient, most effective, and most customer service-focused department in the federal government. We are now referring to USDA as one USDA. With this concept, Food and Nutrition Services is focusing on three main things. Integrity. We will improve accountability and transparency and reduce waste, fraud, and abuse. Customer service. We will ensure access to our programs for those who most need them, and that our partners who deliver services have the tools and flexibilities to extend those services effectively and efficiently. Self-sufficiency is the final target area. We will improve the long-term well-being of those that we serve. I know that there are things everyone in this room can stand behind, and I look forward to how we can all work together to ensure that we're not just repeating words, but ideas that represent nutritional needs. About 22.1 million children and teens receive free and reduced meals through the National School Lunch Program. That's a lot of meals. And we're grateful for the part North Carolina plays in making sure children who need school meals have access to them, while minimizing waste, fraud, and abuse. Making sure children that need those meals are being served in a way that makes the most sense for your local school district and schools, that they have the tools again and the flexibility needed to ensure that they operate effectively and efficiently is our priority. I look forward to hearing about innovative changes, challenges that you might have that we might be able to assist with. We want to alleviate any challenges as it applies to providing nutritious meals to children. Our efforts in feeding America's children clearly pays off when a mother says she no longer has to choose which of her 3 children get to eat at school. When a teacher says their students are more focused and ready to learn in class. When a school nurse says there are less trips to the school nurse as a result of breakfast being served in the classroom. And when the school nutrition director says that his or her staff can spend more time preparing healthy meals that students will truly enjoy. As I close, I'd like to remind us all, while we celebrate what we have accomplished over the past years, there's still much work to be achieved. And we can accomplish this work through working collaboratively together. We can be more successful working together as opposed to apart. I would like to leave you with USDA's new motto, which we believe wholeheartedly, and we hope that you will too. In the words of Secretary Sonny Perdue, do right and feed everyone. We at your Southeast Regional Office look forward to working with you to ensure that progress in providing nutritious meals are provided to all. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bouie. Next, I'm so excited to introduce Dr. Betsey Tilson, who serves as the State Health Director and the Chief Medical Officer at the Department of Health and Human Services. In this role, Dr. Tilson promotes public health and prevention activities, as well as provides guidance and oversight on a variety of cross-departmental issues. She is also a practicing physician at the Wake County Human Services Child Health Clinic. Dr. Tilson is here to speak with us today about her outlook on child nutrition programs from the perspective of the Department of Health and Human Services. So welcome, Dr. Tilson.
Thank you. I am very honored and humbled to have had the invitation to be able to represent the department on such an important issue and to be around such experts with such deep, rich knowledge of this area. And so I by no means feel like I'm the content expert in the room. You all are, and I thank you so much every day for the commitment and the passion and the expertise that you bring to such an important issue. I do have some well-scripted and timed-out comments that I will be sharing and really reflecting the department's approach, not just to food, but to health in a very holistic fashion. But before I get there, I'm going to go off script a little bit and just speak to you as a person and a member of our society. And I feel that we, especially amongst the folks in this room, they're really thinking about the health and well-being of children, that we can't not acknowledge the tragedy that happened yesterday, and more so the tragedy that is happening over and over and over again. And I think that if we don't acknowledge it and we remain immune to it, then we accept that these preventable tragedies are inevitable. And I think it's really important for us to stop and acknowledge when something like that happens and not just be immune to it as a society. And I also think that we need to think about not finding the easy answers and the easy excuses and dismiss it, but to really commit as a society, as a community, to look upstream and think about the root causes and figure out how do we invest in the health and well-being of our people to prevent these tragedies in the future. And I just felt like I could not get up here and pretend that business as usual. I got that through without tears. I kept tearing up this morning thinking, how am I going to do this? So thank you for that. And with that spirit, and I say that as a person, but I also think I say that as it reflects the department and how we're really thinking about health. And I hope that what I'll be able to share with you is the framework for our holistic view of health and how we really want to guide the state in investing in health and well-being of all of our people, with food security being an important element of it, but not the only element. Very many pieces of this, the upstream of our health, are all very interconnected. So thinking about this in a very holistic fashion across, I think about it horizontally across all the sectors that impact our health, but also vertically, and thinking about health in a lifespan perspective and a two-generational perspective. So kids aren't just kids on their own, they're in families, there's parents, so there's a lot of that vertical trajectory and lifespan perspective that we're trying to embrace and coordinate across the department. And you'll hear, those of you who had the opportunity to hear Secretary Cohen, what she will say is that we're trying to buy health. And that is very important. When we talk about buying health, we think about high-value care, so integrated behavioral health, physical health care, but also recognizing that medical care is only about 10 or 20% of our health. And so really addressing those other and really important drivers of health. And the 4 domains that we're prioritizing are looking at housing instability, transportation, interpersonal violence, and food security. They're all interwoven. You can't address one without the other, but also you can pull levers in one area to address health factors in those other areas. So it's bad that they're interconnected, but it's also good that they're interconnected because we have lots of levers we can pull across the department to address these underlying root causes. So we'll talk first a little bit about food insecurity because that's what I was supposed to talk about, but then but then I also want to put food insecurity into this broader framework because that's really where we think we can get a lot of that return on investment and that efficient investment in our health. So we all know, and I have some statistics, but you all know this more than I do, that being food insecure is really bad for your health in a lot of different factors. It's really bad for your physical health. So having a pregnant woman, be food insecure, that really sets the kid up even right from before they even hit this earth, and having some poor health outcomes. We know we can have lower birth weight, gestational diabetes, worse health outcomes, pregnancy health outcomes when the mother is food insecure. We also know that if a child has some specific nutritional deficiency, so iron deficiency anemia, or calcium deficits, that can affect their brain development, their bone development. And we also know that these health effects that happen in childhood then continue on into adult health status and can contribute to adult diabetes and cardiovascular disease and chronic disease, as well as depression and anxiety. So what happens as a child is remembered by that body and stays with you as an adult. So it's really important from the physical health aspect to address food security. It's also really important from our social emotional development. So we do know that children who have food insecurity often are struggling with social emotional well-being. Some of that is just from the direct nutritional deficiency from being food insecure, but it's also related to that anxiety and that worry of being food insecure. So maybe your family has food today, but what about tomorrow? What happens in the summer? What happens when there's a snow day? That constant worry and anxiety, and you can't focus on what you need to focus because you're so worried, when are we going to be without food again? And that can't be undersold, that social emotional aspect of food insecurity really makes a huge toll on a person's well-being. We also know that it directly links to your ability to learn and your academic achievement, right from early infancy all the way through hopeful graduation. We know that nutrition is important for brain development, and healthy brain development is the architecture for your success down the road. So early brain development, infant nutrition, incredibly important. We also know the couple of the food security, as well as that overlaying of that social anxiety. Thinking about a child in preschool, think about that child who is hungry, who is so food insecure. How do they attend in preschool and really be able to get those building blocks that will make them ready, school ready, and succeed in school? So we know developmental delay and cognitive impairment, all that will affect school readiness pre-K. And then they hit school. Whew, and think of that, now they've had 5 years of things that barriers up against them, and so and then translate that into school. And so we do know that those children that have had food insecurity, it impact their learning, their school function, their academic performance, looking at achievement on standardized tests and performances. So it's all interrelated from preconception to conception, early infancy, all through school. We also think about it in a 2-generational approach. So if a child is in a household who's food insecure, and that parent is also in a household that's food insecure, and often then that parent will make themselves even more food insecure because they will give the food to the children. So then you think about a hungry food insecure adult, and how can that parent then, who's stressed and anxious then how can that person be that nurturer for that child in that house? And how do we help that family dynamic to allow that parent to nurture and foster that child? So it is all this intermingled web. So the good news, yay, so sorry, I didn't mean to depress you all, but there's good news. There's things that we can do, which is great. I just think anyways, there's good things that we can do. So the SNAP program, our USDA programs, all the food and nutrition programs that you all are talking, There's awesome. Those are great, great programs and great levers that we can pull. And we know that our SNAP benefits in North Carolina are parallel with national statistics, that almost half of our SNAP benefits go to households with children in them, which is great. And we also know that SNAP benefits then can pull people out of, help to achieve food security for our families. So that is great. We know SNAP works, and we know that it can improve food security. But the other piece, and then the advantage of this interconnected of all these interrelated, health-related issues, is that so SNAP benefits not only can address food insecurity, but also a lot of our families are right on the margin in terms of their overall economics. And so if you can then free up some of their money that might be going to food, that frees up then money to go to housing stability, goes to transportation, goes to all the other basic needs that they may need. So it's an incredible way of lifting our families out of poverty and getting some of the other basic needs met. So SNAP has two functions: improves health and helps to improve poverty. And we do know that SNAP has lifted more than 2 million children out of poverty, and another 2 million out of the lower half of poverty to the upper half of poverty. So thinking about SNAP as an economic driver is a really important aspect of that. So what are we doing at DHHS to try to foster this holistic view of health and buy health? So one, we're trying to pull as many levers as we can to get kids and families enrolled in SNAP. So thinking about of our Medicaid recipients, who's not enrolled in SNAP and why, and how do we make that enrollment easier? There are opportunities that we're working on with DPH and DPI and No Kid Hungry to think about how do we smooth out the enrollment process into some after-school programs, at-risk after-school meals. So there's ways that we can think about making it easier for people to enroll in the services that they're eligible for. But we're also trying to build a statewide framework to think about how to do this holistically, and not just think about food, but how do we resource the state to think about all of these issues. And some tools that will be coming out that you all can take advantage of, and hopefully to drive some of your work. But the first thing is we're working with our State Center for Health Statistics, and we will be soon, in the next week or two, we think, there'll be a statewide map that codifies our communities across the state, and in terms of 12 indicators of social determinants of health. So looking at economic, housing, food security, food desperate, transportation. So we really can see across the state where are our areas of needs, and that can help then drive investment into our communities. We also are building a big statewide resource database and social service integration tool so that if we find people who need health-related resources, it'll be an easy way to connect and to track and efficiently use our resources. We are working on a standardized screening tool that can be used across all of our settings, especially our clinical settings, that looks at housing, food, transportation, interpersonal violence, so we can find people more easily and then link them to those resources that they may need. We're doing a lot of work in our Medicaid waiver. Food insecurity and social determinants are not just a Medicaid issue, they're a global issue, but Medicaid is a huge lever that we can use to address this for some of our most vulnerable population. So we're doing an enormous amount of work within our Medicaid waiver. And we're also thinking about workforce issues. Community health workers are an incredibly valuable workforce that are really great in a very respectful and culturally competent way that can link families to resources that they may be a stigma or a shame associated with those resources. So we're really thinking about what's the right workforce to help our families connect to the resources that we need. So we're building this big framework. It's all interconnected. We're trying to give a framework to help pull those levers so that this lever here can help with that lever there. And we recognize again that 10% of health comes from clinical care, 80 to 90% comes from all these others. So how we buy health by investing in all these others and making that be efficient, and then evaluate it and show that return on investment so we don't have to keep having the same argument over and over again of where do we invest our money? We invest the money where you get the best return on investment, and that is housing, that is food, that is all those other drivers. So that is it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tilson. I'm really excited to look at that map. Sounds fascinating. So next we are going to hear from Caroline Farmer, who's the Executive Director of Volunteerism and Community Service in the Office of the Governor. Ms. Farmer previously worked in the office of the North Carolina Attorney General, where she oversaw public education efforts statewide on issues such as identity theft, financial exploitation of older adults, and internet safety for children. She currently serves on the state board for North Carolina Wheels of Hope. So welcome, Caroline Farmer.
Good morning. Y'all still awake. That's good. Well, I bring you greetings from the governor, and I know you're going to hear from the First Lady, but this is an area of interest for the governor's office. In fact, No Kid Hungry originated from the governor's office years ago, before my time. I can't take any credit. So, this is a passion for a lot of us to make sure that the kids are getting what they need so that they can learn, so that they can work hard, so they can focus. I myself am one of those people that keeps the granola bars in the drawer in the office because I tend to forget to eat. And you know what happens? I can't focus anymore. So my office has learned to just hand me food. Because this is what happens. Now, I want to make sure you know a little bit about why the North Carolina Commission on Volunteerism and Community Service is up here and the connection to why we're all here today. First of all, we oversee the AmeriCorps grants, the state AmeriCorps grants in North Carolina. How many of you have heard of AmeriCorps? Great, wonderful. How many of you are AmeriCorps? Wonderful. Thank y'all for your service. How many of you are former AmeriCorps? Look at all the hands. And then how many of you have worked with AmeriCorps members? See? All right, so that just lets you know in this room that y'all are higher than average as far as what the world knows and what AmeriCorps can do for this state. But there's some amazing things that are going on in this state in terms of nutrition, especially for kids, involving AmeriCorps programs. So I'm just going to highlight a few of them just so you understand. Most of them, on a programmatic level, are geared towards nutritional education and creating some sort of either garden at the school or community garden, something along those lines to help with nutrition in youth. Just to name a few, Food Corps. It's a national program like Habitat. It is a direct, it's all over the state, and they're geared towards helping with the gardens and so forth at various schools. We have one of my programs, Project Power. And it's out of Buncombe County. They plant the garden with the kids in elementary school. They take care of the garden the entire time. The kids do. They harvest the garden. They prep the food, and then they cook and eat the food. So it's a full service training program for elementary schools. The North Carolina Conservation Fund in Nash and Edgecombe County. Not something you would naturally think of as food-oriented. However, they have a program out called 2020. No, it's I can't remember the name. Anyway, it's a program outside of within their unit where they're working on providing healthy local food in that area. We have High Point University involved in making sure that food co-ops, that there's gardens, there's other things going on. The North Carolina NC State, with the Institute for Emerging Issues, they have a program in Wilkes County right now working on food insecurity. We have United Way in Wilson County, who is also working on making sure that we're increasing healthy food for the youth in the area. So this just gives you an idea of across the state of some groups that are actively engaged right now in helping this way. And I want to keep us on time, and so I know I'm going to move my stuff forward a little bit, but I want to make sure you know this story. So one of our programs, the one in Buncombe County, Project Power, one of the members was talking about what it's like to do this with the kids, to cook turnips with kids. I don't know about y'all, but I didn't grow up eating turnips. So they were showing the kids how great it was to eat a turnip. And the kids loved it. They enjoyed the whole process, growing all the way to eating. So the next day, this member gets a call. And usually when a parent calls, that's not good. So she gets this call, and it's the parent going, "What is a turnip and how do I make it?" My kid came home saying, "I have to start making turnips at home." So there is a way. Isn't that wonderful? So I leave you with this effect, this ripple effect that can happen because of one student loving turnips and his whole family now being introduced to the love of turnips. So thank y'all for all that you do. If I can answer any questions about AmeriCorps, about volunteerism in general, because we cover a lot of different topics, please do not hesitate to contact me. Again, I'm Caroline Farmer at the Governor's Office. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. So finally, last but certainly not least, I'm excited to welcome Jessica Holmes, who's the chair of the Wake County Commissioners. When she was elected in 2014, Jessica became the youngest Wake Commissioner in county history. She was unanimously voted to the position of chair in December. Jessica is also a member of the board of directors for the North Carolina Foundation of Public School Children and a helping hand. So please welcome Jessica.
I want to be cognizant of time, so I'm not going to go through all of my slides and statistics that I had planned. And I chose to use this mic because of the limited amount of time, I wanted to make sure that rather than talking to you about statistics, which most of you have memorized, I really wanted to connect. So flow with me for a minute. I'm going to ask you to use your imagination. Imagine that you're 8 years old. You are the eldest of 5 children. You walk into the kitchen and you open the refrigerator and nothing's there but condiments. You think to yourself, what can I make with ketchup and mustard that is going to feed these 4 children that I'm responsible for? Now, most of you have to imagine that situation, but for me, I only have to remember one of my most vivid childhood memories. As a child who grew up on free or reduced price lunch, who was a recipient of those SNAP benefits, which we call food stamps. I'm from rural eastern North Carolina, and we simply call them food stamps. I remember back when food stamps looked like Monopoly money. Do you all remember that? Now we've upgraded to the debit cards, but I remember thinking, this looks a lot like Monopoly money that I play with when we would be spending food stamps in the grocery store. And I struggled about whether I would bring this up. But when we talked about SNAP benefits, and when we talked about turnips, I'm going to connect that to my personal story. So when I talked about that refrigerator being empty, even though we receive SNAP benefits, if you're familiar with the process, you get the money essentially once a month, which means at the end of the month, you get the money, refrigerator has some stuff in it. End of the month, there's less stuff in it. But in the past few days, I've heard about the possibility of reducing SNAP benefits and providing people with sort of boxes of food. I'm gonna tell you why that's a pet peeve of mine. So as someone, again, who grew up on free and reduced price lunch, I remember very well-intentioned people dropping off boxes of food, and they almost always had peanut butter in it. I don't like peanut butter. No matter how many times you put an item in front of a child, if they don't like it, most of us with children know that if they don't like it, they're not going to eat it. That's why parents have to be creative and, make things look like chicken nuggets and give it weird shapes. But I remember thinking and having these items just almost shelved up, all this peanut butter, all this stuff we didn't know how to cook. And then we talk about things like turnips. So if you send a family a box of food without the education to go with it, you're probably going to end up with a lot of food waste. You're probably going to end up with a bunch of food stacked up in a household that is still hungry. So we talked about like the different tiers of county, and in Wake County, we're a high wealth county. Most people take that to mean we don't have poor people. In Wake County, about 14% of our population is food insecure. That's about 132,000 people. Now, I mentioned that I'm from good old Pender County. Town seat is Burgaw. And my county has a population now of about 60,000 people. So we have more people that are food insecure in Wake County than Pender County has in people. About a fifth of the children in our school system are food insecure. So I remember getting that form, where you fill out the form to get your free and reduced price lunch. For starters, half the time it didn't get completed. And when I got old enough to complete it myself, I would do it. But then I remember getting to high school, and I played sports, I played tennis, and I remember I was going through the lunch line with a couple of my tennis mates, the cool girls. And the process was that you had to give your free and reduced price lunch number, which meant everyone knew that like you were on free or reduced price lunch. And so I remember oftentimes I wouldn't even give the number. I would just be hungry rather than let my classmates know that I was one of those kids. So I pride myself on sort of purpose-driven leadership, purpose-driven service. My platform is largely driven by my personal experiences. So one of the first things that I did when I became a Wake County Commissioner was connect with the Interfaith Food Shuttle about providing pantries in middle and high schools. I started with high schools because of my memory of not wanting to give up my free and reduced price lunch number and have, that secret sort of be out. So I thought, also, when you think about snow days, now as an adult, I get really excited about snow days. My job is on the school system's calendar, so if they get a snow day, I get a snow day. But as a child, not that we had many snow days in Pender County, but when you had snow days or Christmas holidays or extended weekends, long weekends, I remember thinking, dang, that breakfast that I was looking forward to, that lunch that I was looking forward to, particularly at the end of the month. So I went to Interfaith Food Shuttle with the idea of let's put pantries in our high schools. The reason this was particularly important, how many people have heard of backpack buddies? Right? We love backpack buddies. Many middle and high school children, even if you gave it to them, they wouldn't take it. In a day of bullying and people being stigmatized, they won't take it. So what we did was we put pantries in our high poverty high schools. These aren't just your run-of-the-mill pantries. Each pantry has a refrigerator and a deep freezer, fresh fruit, vegetables, and meat. But here's where the dignity aspect comes into play that this new SNAP concept flies in the face of. Children and their families get to go into these pantries and choose what they want for their families. And again, that concept was built off of my personal experiences. So when you have bureaucrats making decisions without talking to the people that have experienced it and that have the insight to know what may be well-intentioned is actually a disservice to the people that you're actually trying to help. In addition to our effort to provide pantries, for starters, one of my greatest concerns was like, in Wake County, we are struggling to build schools. Even with the class size restrictions being eased, we struggle. At 67 people coming in every single day, we can't build schools fast enough. And we're a great place to live because we're also birthing a kindergarten class every single day. We can't build schools quickly enough. So that said, in spite of the wealth that Wake County has, we have so many children that need assistance and don't know where their next meal is going to come from. So we also have a universal school breakfast program where children, regardless of their income, are able to have breakfast. This helps ease that stigma. We also have a summer food service program. And going back to the pantries for a second, I remember when I initially brought the concept to the Wake County School Board, the thought was, where are we gonna put these pantries? And so we decided we'd put it out to the principals and we'd let them decide if it was something they wanted or not. At that point, I was like, oh, they're not gonna go for it. You know, when you don't have that personal experience, I was like, they're not gonna give up a classroom or a space. And one of our principals that stood up and welcomed the opportunity is here, Principal Sherman of Roseville Middle. Thank you for being one of our principals to step up. Our first year, we piloted 5 pantries in 5 high schools. The next year, there was so much demand that we doubled the pantries. And in spite of us doubling the pantries, we still have principals that are begging us for more pantries. As of right now in Wake County, we have 48 schools. That's a lot of schools, right? We have 48 schools where the free and reduced price lunch ratio is over 50%. As of today, every single one of those schools has a dedicated food resource. We recently enacted Wake County's first ever food insecurity plan called Moving Beyond Hunger. And so it's an honor for me to be able to come here and talk about, one, my personal experience, but also share with you what we're actually doing about it and how important it is for us as leaders to not just, take what we've learned in school or what we read in a book. We're all credentialed, we got JDs and PhDs and all this other stuff. But when you're serving vulnerable populations, it's important that we engage the very people that we're trying to help. And that's the message that I wanted to leave you with, a different message from the slides that I had prepared. But because of an article that I read coming in here, I thought it was important for me to share that with you. So thank you. I appreciate your work.
Thank you so much, Jessica. That was such a great note to end this conversation on. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. Let's give them another round of applause for this great conversation.